Not all luxury car brands are throwaway after 3 years or the warranty period is up. There are in fact some great reliable luxury vehicles you can find on the market today that will last 200,000-300,000 miles because of their durable engines that you'll find under the hood. And here's one on the list. Of course, we have a Mercedes AMG, and specifically we're talking about the GLC 43 or the C43, which is the sedan or sport coupe version of this exact vehicle. It has the same gearbox, same transmission, as well as same engine, and they are ultra reliable. They're definitely going to run a long time, and they're the direct competition for BMW's infamous B58 engine, but we'll get to that in a second. These vehicles here are all aluminum, 3-liter twin turbo V6 called the M276 engine, absolutely bulletproof. Now, does it have its share of issues? It's a luxury vehicle, it's highly technologically advanced. It has all aluminum, piezo injectors. It's a 3-liter V6 of 60-degree angle, but not to be confused with the Pentastar engine. This is a durable piece. But let's take a quick look at the vehicle, and I seriously love not just the way these look, but these engines under the hood, because that M276 can be found in 2013 to 2023 model years. Anything later than that, now you've switched it up again. This here is one of the most reliable pieces you can consider buying if you're thinking about buying a slightly used Mercedes-Benz. Here you get the AMG badging. It's not a true AMG car, but like in all of their glory, a lot of times Mercedes-Benz starts throwing AMG badging on everything for something that's slightly upscale. No different than BMW throwing M badging. Right here you have a twin turbo bi-turbo 4MATIC. 4MATIC means it's all-wheel drive. You're driving power to all 4 wheels. You get some beautiful wheels here, naturally laser cut, fold-away mirrors. Look at lots of glass panel on top, but you also get the same panel on the C-Class sedans and coupes. But right here you have a nice stout aggressive look, and not only do you get one of their best engines, you also get a stylish SUV. It looks aggressive. Same with the sedan. When you get the C43, it's a great looking vehicle, because what they tend to do is they give you a little bit more flair, they give you a little bit more pronounced wheels, taller rim package. You get this beautiful quad exhaust tips are part of that C43 or GLC 43 packaging, LEDs for the tail lights, beautiful styling throughout. I definitely love the looks of these vehicles. Yeah, the inside is chock full of technology. Now, I've talked about Mercedes, and I do believe that some of their build quality is a little bit fragile these days, but most of that seems to be on the cosmetic end. Plastics, interior fit and finish, buttons and knobs. But I've checked out the classifieds, I've talked to numerous owners of these vehicles, and it's not uncommon to find these with 120, 150, 200,000 miles on them I've seen in the classifieds. Now, they're not even that old yet. Give them a few more years and people continue to use these, you're gonna find them with 200,000 and 300,000 miles and beyond. These engines are pretty stout. Now, there have been a few small challenges to consider. Of course, cooling line hoses, which comes as part of a maintenance, and doesn't matter what kind of internal combustion vehicle you drive, you're always gonna have to consider cooling hoses, water pumps, thermostats, which by the way are all electronically controlled, but these vehicles have been very durable and one of their best staples for reliability. Few common issues that you need to consider though are oil separator issues. You can wind up with a little excessive oil consumption. Also, you can get the cooling system problems, which I mentioned. You may get the odd coolant leak. Just stay on top of your maintenance and your hoses. As soon as something starts leaking, you want to get ahead of that. Camshaft adjuster issues have been slightly problematic, as are on the earlier generations of the M276, the timing chain rattle. You can get a timing chain rattle on a cold start of a vehicle. Once you know that's happening, then that might be time to address some of those issues. That's not an uncommon problem, but again, one that seems to afflict more of the early generation rather than the more later generation of vehicles, and ultimately deal with any of those problems, and the fundamental engine is very, very reliable. You're definitely going to want to check out the M276 for the win, whether you're looking at a vehicle like this, the GLC 43 or the C43.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
Another engine that's never forgettable, and it'll be a sad day when it finally goes away. You're finding them a lot in Toyota as well as Lexus products. It's the 2GR series of engines. Now, you'll find them in these vehicles. This one here is a Lexus ES, so it's predominantly a front-wheel drive vehicle, so that engine sits sideways, transversely mounted. If you're looking at an IS, it gives you rear-wheel drive and it runs longitudinal. But here we have these beautiful headlights, checkmark grills. I love the style of all this piano finishing. Beautiful high-gloss rims. This is the F Sport fold-away LCD GLC 500 style mirrors. Of course, you do get a sunroof. It's not overly large, but it works. And of course, all kinds of nice chrome detailing on a lot of these modern Lexus vehicles. They are absolutely beautiful. And the Lexus, like this one here, the ES350, it denotes the engine that you need to have. The 350 means it's got that 3.5 liter V6, the 2GR series, and we'll get into some of the technical specifications. But here as we cycle around, it's beautiful, it's large and in charge, gives you lots of space in the back, lots of space in the front, and the ES is arguably one of Lexus' most reliable vehicles. Currently, it's a current model, does carry that 3.5 liter V6, but unfortunately the Lexus RX now, they've discontinued that engine. That 3.5 liter V6 is no longer associated with the 350 there. Rather, 2022 is the last year of the RX, and unfortunately the IS is also one of the last few that actually carry that particular 3.5 liter V6. The RC two-door sports car as well does, but sadly the number of models even in Lexus and Toyota that carry that 3.5 liter V6 2GR is going away. But it's one of the very, very best. Why do I say that? It's not because the look of their cars and everybody says, well, Toyota and Lexus are reliable. Things like that engine, that the 2GR gives it that durability. Sure, well, it's an open deck design. It's not meant necessarily for racing, but for a commuter car, there's almost nothing that beats it for durability. It gives you direct injection, but it also doubles down with port injection. So you're always washing those intake valves. And unlike a lot of direct injected engines that you're finding in a lot of other competition, they just essentially wind up with carbon fouling throughout the engine, the intake, the backs of the intake valves, and of course it just becomes carboned up and requires a little extra maintenance. This one, Toyota and Lexus thought about that, and it alternates as it needs. So you'll get in this all aluminum design, alternating between direct and port fuel injection. You do get up to almost 300 horsepower in most of the models that carry that engine, and it's really nothing short of amazing in terms of overall durability. And when we hear about some of those Toyotas going 300, 400, 500,000 miles, there's a few engines that go with that. The 4.6, 4.7, and 5.7 liter V8s, as well as the 3.5 liter V6 by Toyota and Lexus. Absolutely unbeatable. If you're liking the video so far, you're gonna love the rest of the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and don't forget the notifications bell so you know when the next amazing videos come. The next cars are ones that carry some of the most legendary modern day engines that you're gonna find. BMW, whether it's in cars or SUVs, carries an engine that is found in many, many models. The B58, they call it, which is an inline 6-cylinder 3-liter displacement, and it's all aluminum, single turbo twin scroll. It absolutely is a gem. It's reliable, it's powerful, and it absolutely grossly overshadows any of the previously generational engines by BMW. It's one that I truly stand by, and it's one of the best, most durable engines you'll possibly imagine. Good enough, in fact, so Toyota even adopted it for their Toyota Supra, which carries the identical B58 engine. And here we have a BMW. This one here isn't so much the 850, but any BMW that carries a 40 designation, just like this X5 over here that carries an xDrive 40i. That 40i generational series means it carries that B58 engine under the hood. Now, here we have all kinds of greatness. The X5's always been one of those vehicles that a lot of people have gravitated to. It's a good mid-size SUV for BMW, but they've had some sordid history. They've had some problems with their V8s, whether it was the 4.8s or the 4.4 twin turbos in the early generations. They've had some issues with the N55 engine that they found the previous generation turbo inline 6. But now you can literally have your cake and eat it too in modern day BMWs. You can get yourself a modern luxury car driving experience. The ultimate driving machine, as they say, has all of the greatest technology, beautiful headlights, LEDs, alloys, beautiful new accents in some of the newer generations, one-touch access in, and I will say the hardware tends to hold up a lot better in a lot of the BMWs over a lot of their counterparts from Audi and certainly from Mercedes-Benz. You have all of these great detailing, styling details, of course, that BMW is so good at. They create a vehicle that looks sporty and drives sporty too. It looks as good as it drives. You get LED tail lights right here. Again, xDrive means that you're getting all-wheel drive, and it's one of their legendary systems. It's predominantly a rear-wheel drive, of course, with the all-wheel drive to the front wheel as needed. You get beautiful aluminum detailing here. Now, granted, a lot of it's plastic, but show me a car around here that isn't loaded with plastic. Even though there's a lot of plastic under the hood, and a lot of people are going to say plastic fantastic, and I'm certainly one of those advocates for saying too much plastic under the hood is not a good scene. The B58 does different things. There's been some big upgrades. Heat encapsulation. So in other words, It prevents the highs and lows of temperature swings, which are one of the biggest enemies to plastic under the hood. So heat encapsulation means it maintains that temperature for many, many hours after the vehicle is shut down. So also you get a much better upgraded system, fuel injectors, fuel pumps, much better than the previous generation N55 or N54. So the upgraded fuel system is better. It's got a better bottom end, sturdier crankshaft, as well as bigger journals. And of course, the webbing and the support structure in the case are much sturdier than some of their previous generations. Of course, you also have now a mechanical water pump instead of the older electronic or electric water pump in this generation with the B58, means that there's less probability, because even I can attest, I owned an older generation BMW 335 with the N54 that had an electric water pump, and they fail. They get hot, the housing cracks and splits, then they leak, and they're very difficult to change because they're buried so deep underneath the vehicle, way down there, that they're very difficult to change. The thermostat usually goes with it, and it usually a combination of a $1,500 repair. If you do it yourself, take it to the shop, it's $2,500 to $3,000 just for that. And it's a very common issue that goes after 60, 70,000 miles. This one, no. Those problems are gone. Now, sure, you'll have a few minor issues. You could still get the infamous oil filter housing gaskets right here that can leak, and they do from time to time, but it's a relatively minor issue. You don't have the wastegate rattle problems of the older cars. You don't have the weaker fuel systems. You certainly have a lot of those issues have been dialed out. You also get this mated up to the beautiful ZF 8-speed automatic transmission in almost every one of BMW's models, and it's a workhorse. Everybody knows it shifts, it predicts your shifting patterns and your behaviors, but it does it in a reliable way. These vehicles, BMWs, truly have some of the best inline 6-cylinder engines right now in the market, and I truly believe they can almost pretty much go toe-to-toe with any modern day Toyota and Lexus in terms of overall longevity. You can expect a lot of miles from this latest generation B58 engine, and you can find this wonderful engine in any of the BMWs, from the X3, X4, X5, X6, the X7, as well as all of the cars, pretty much 3 Series, 4 Series, 5 Series, 6 Series. You get the gist. The list goes on and on. Anything other than their entry-level cars can pretty much get the B58 engine as either one of their upscale or base engine configurations. Absolutely a workhorse, and BMW knocked it out of the park with that B58 that will last hundreds of thousands of miles. For long-lasting luxury vehicles, you cannot ignore Acura, but some of their engines have really stood out because a lot of these types of engines are going away in the industry. It's the V6. Now, Acura has one downside, but let's explain. They have a couple of V6s available. Right here you have the MDX, and right over there you have the TLX. Now, I like the TLX specifically. It's a gorgeous looking car. You have this great looking front grille, very unique. I love the headlights, and the styling of these vehicles is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I don't think they get enough airtime because the engine under these hoods is absolutely almost bulletproof. There are some exceptions. I'm going to explain that in a second, but what we have here is a gorgeous version. This is the A spec of the TLX, but look, shh, it's all-wheel drive. But everybody has their marketing jargon, right? Either way, it's a good-looking car, and there's not many cars, especially sedans these days on the market, really pretty much restricted to the import market, and even more specifically luxury car segment. Pretty much everybody, GM, Ford, as well as Dodge, Ram, they pretty much gave up all of their sedans many moons ago. Now, unfortunately, these engines are going away. There's not a lot of these around. What we have here is either one of two engines in the TLX, which is either turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, or one of my personal favorites, you can actually get a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine for these vehicles in the Type S. That's right, either a turbo 2 or a turbo V6 is available in the TLX. It features a 355 horsepower with variable timing control. Now, some would argue with the VTC or some of their cylinder deactivation that Acura is losing a little bit of their durability. But the engine that you'll find as a Type S, the J35AC, is one of the best engines you could possibly imagine, and one of the longest lasting in the luxury car segment. You can't give this one a walk by and not decide, at least take it for a drive and experience it. Now, that said, if you're looking at the TLX, you've got to step up to the V6. But if you're looking at the MDX, you actually have a couple of V6 options. The base V6, which gives you a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6, which is a tried and true engine, been around a long time, and I love those engines. They are durable. There's only one downside to both the 3.5-liter naturally aspirated or the turbocharged V6 3-liter engines that you can get in this vehicle or the TLX, and that is the fact that they have timing belts. Now, while they have this variable cylinder deactivation business and all this other nonsense, from my understanding, They actually have a lot of technology buried in there, and there's been a few cases of people talk about issues with that, issues with the transmissions, but overall you cannot fault a modern day Acura. It's ultimately a Honda product. Sure, they're built in the US, that they are. However, they are a very reliable vehicle, and I would challenge anybody to buy one of these vehicles and not see it go at least 250,000 miles if you do your maintenance. See, because at 105,000 miles roughly, you need to do the timing belt, you've got to do your regular oil services, and any kind of weird nickel and dime problem that arises, you've just got to make sure you take care of it. But you look after these vehicles and they will run virtually forever. The Acura with the V6, whether it's the 3.5 liter V6 or that 3 liter twin turbo, is the hot rod. That's my personal choice, and that's the one I would recommend. I would own all day long. The next group of vehicles with their engines that will last forever, and you definitely want to take a chance, are the ES300H, the NX350H, the RX350H, which is the larger SUV like you're looking at right there, as well as a plethora of other Lexus and Toyota vehicles that carry the same drivetrain. They have a number of tricks up their sleeve. Primarily, number one, they use one of the most reliable CVT transmissions. They have their ECPP, which is a Toyota trademark item, and of course they're ultra durable, much better than their competition. And there's essentially two different engines, the A25A FKS, which is the naturally aspirated, but the one I'm talking about is the A25A FXS, which is the hybrid attached to a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine under that hood. These drivetrains were part of the new dynamic force drivetrain setup, and of course there's an expansion of the valve clamping angle from 41 degrees all the way up from 31, meaning they're trying to get a lot more airflow into the combustion chamber. You also get hydraulic variable valve timing, very high compression ratios, as it's a moderated Atkinson style engine. They get the updated D4S, which is the multi-hole fuel injection setup, which provides a much more even distribution of fuel into the combustion chamber as well. And the cylinder center line is offset from the crankshaft center line, meaning that the piston to top dead center is always equivalent to several degrees of crankshaft rotation. Again, further providing better performance. And all this fast talking voodoo and witchcraft just quantify into one key feature: reliability. And because it's a Toyota / Lexus brand, you know you're going to get a lot of miles out of it. Now, generally 4-cylinder engines are not going to last as long as a V6, but because a lot of these now are based on the hybrid setup, we know that Toyota and Lexus have some of the most reliable hybrids, some of the most reliable CVT systems with their eCVTs, and ultimately create a product that is going to last hundreds of thousands of miles. Ask yourself this question: why do you think during the vehicle shortage, why it was so difficult to get hybrid Lexus vehicles and you had to go on such a long waiting list? Well, some of it had to do with the business model, and of course the delivery on time definitely meant there was a bit of a stir and anxiety and kind of created this sort of desire to want to go out and buy, but there is more to it. Of course, the batteries and a lot of those parts in the supply chain were a bit limited, but there was such a strong demand for Toyota and Lexus products, just like the Toyota Prius Prime. At one point, you had to wait 2.5 to 3 years to get one. Things have settled out, and now it's not much more than maybe a 3 or 4 month wait for some of these vehicles. But the bottom line is they're highly sought after. Trying to find a nice quality unit with one of these hybrid 4-cylinder engines with a 2.5 liter displacement means that it's going to be a challenge on the secondary market. Going to buy a new one always represents a better deal, because buying secondhand with say 30,000-40,000 miles, you're probably paying as much or more than you would for a brand new one, simply because people know that they will last. They have trust, they have faith, and it's easy to assume that a lot of these vehicles now are going to make it hundreds of thousands of miles. And if you overlook one of these key Lexus models with their 350 designation H hybrid drivetrain setups with the 2.5, you're missing the boat. But to top it off, if you want some of the most reliable vehicles right there, that's the mega compilation. You can sit back, enjoy, grab a bag of popcorn, and sit back for the ride. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one, everybody. See you real soon. Bye-bye.